They say your life can change in a moment, and it sounds like such a cliché until it happens to you. My moment came in a bathroom 5 minutes after school on a Thursday. The test stick in my hand was shaking, but not as much as I was. And when those 2 pink lines showed up, the world didn't stop like in the movies. It just blurred. I sat on the edge of the tub, my jeans around my ankles, and just stared. I kept thinking maybe it's a mistake, even though I knew it wasn't. My heart pounded like it wanted to escape my chest, and for a second I actually thought I was gonna throw up again. That should have been a clue, right? I was 17, a junior, captain of the volleyball team, had dreams of going to college in Chicago, maybe studying psychology. And up until that point I thought I had everything figured out. But nothing prepares you for this. My boyfriend Jake had this crooked grin that made you believe anything he said. He was the kind of boy that parents liked just enough but never fully trusted, and that should have told me something. When I told him, outside the old pizza place behind school, the place where we used to split a basket of garlic knots, he stared at me like I was speaking a different language. "You sure?" he said, pulling at the hem of his hoodie like it might hide him from the truth. I nodded. "Yeah, took 3 of them." He ran his fingers through his hair. "You gonna do something about it?" And right there I knew. Not because of what he said, but how he said it. Cold. Detached. Like this wasn't his life changing too. "I'm keeping it," I said. And his eyes went wide like I'd thrown a punch. He said, "Look, Ellie, I mean, come on, we're just kids. No, we'll figure this out. No, I'm with you." Just silence. And then the kind of slow back away you see in wildlife videos when an animal senses danger and decides to vanish. That was Jake. He vanished. I walked home alone that day, every step heavier than the last. My mom was folding laundry when I walked in, the scent of fabric softener in the air. She smiled like it was just any other Thursday. "Hey baby," she said, "you want grilled cheese?" I opened my mouth but nothing came out. The words stuck in my throat like glue, so I just nodded. I ate grilled cheese and tomato soup and didn't say a word. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my hand resting on my stomach, still flat and quiet, but not empty anymore. The next morning I told her. She blinked twice. "What do you mean?" "I'm pregnant." Her coffee cup hit the table so hard it sloshed. She stood up, paced, then sat, then stood again. "Jake?" she asked. I nodded. She muttered something under her breath that sounded like, "Jesus help me." And then she looked at me with a mixture of sadness and fear I'll never forget. My dad didn't speak to me for a full day. Just walked around tight-lipped and pale like he'd swallowed a stone. And then, when he finally did say something, it wasn't the yelling I expected. It was worse. "You've just made your life 10 times harder, Eleanor." But he hugged me. Eventually. They both did. That weekend I got a text from Jake. Just one sentence. "I'm sorry, but I can't do this." He blocked me the next day. At school, whispers followed me like perfume. Girls I barely knew suddenly had opinions about my body, my choices. Even teachers gave me these looks, half pity, half judgment. One guidance counselor even said, "You know, there's still time to make a different decision." I didn't need anyone's approval. But God, it would have been nice to have just one person say, "You're gonna be okay." It felt like the whole world had gone silent and I was screaming into it. And yet, through all that noise, I felt something else begin to grow inside me. Not just a baby, but resolve. Quiet and steady, like a seed under snow. I didn't know yet how hard it would get, or how much strength I had in me. But I knew one thing for sure. I was going to love this baby with everything I had. And no matter what anyone said, I was going to make it. It didn't take long for the rumors to start. One girl saw me in the nurse's office and said I looked a little pale. And by 7th period I was apparently for months in hiding it. High school gossip spreads faster than the flu. And it doesn't need facts, it just needs a whisper. The Monday after I found out I was pregnant, I walked into first period wearing my biggest hoodie. The hall suddenly felt like a runway and I was the spectacle. I kept my head down, sat in the back, didn't say much. And of course that just made it worse. Ellie's being weird lately. Maybe it's morning sickness. I heard Jake isn't even talking to her. That part was true. Jake ghosted me like I was nothing but a bad memory. He transferred to another lunch period, unfollowed me on everything. It was like we'd never been anything. Never sat on his porch talking about college and dreams like we were real people with a future. Now I was just the girl who got knocked up. And he got to be the guy who had potential. But life keeps moving, even when you don't want it to. A week after I told my parents, my mom drove me to the doctor's office. It was one of those women's health clinics off the highway, tucked between a laundromat and a used tire shop. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and worry. There were magazines from 2018 and a baby poster with smiling mothers on every wall. I didn't feel like them. I didn't feel like a mother. I felt like a scared teenager pretending to be brave. The nurse who took me in had gentle eyes. Her name tag said Marcia. She didn't treat me like I'd made a mistake. She treated me like I was just a person who needed care. That meant more to me than I could explain. When she did the ultrasound, I stared at the screen and thought, this is real. That tiny flicker, barely a blip, was a heartbeat. My babies. I held my breath. My mom wiped her eyes. I didn't cry. I just felt this strange, quiet awe, like standing in the middle of a storm and realizing the wind isn't trying to hurt you. It's just moving everything around. I guess that's the first photo, I whispered. Marcia smiled and printed it out. School got harder. Not just the classes, which I started falling behind in, but the way teachers looked at me like I was a project they didn't sign up for. Mrs. Green, my chemistry teacher, started calling on me less. Mr. Thompson, who used to joke with me before class, avoided eye contact altogether. But the worst was the silence from my friends. Emily, who'd been my best friend since 7th grade, stopped texting me. Said she was just really busy with SAT stuff. But I knew. People don't just get busy, they get uncomfortable. And I made everyone uncomfortable. I was a reminder of what could happen when you stop being careful. Except for Maria. Maria sat next to me in English, and one day she slid a granola bar onto my desk. You looked hungry, she said. Could have cried. She started walking with me between classes, sitting with me at lunch. She didn't ask a million questions. She just showed up. Every single day. One time when I bent down to tie my shoe and groaned because my back hurt, she didn't laugh or look away. She just said, "You need one of those grandma pillows for your chair." And then she brought me one the next day, covered in sunflowers. I held on to that like a lifeline. At home things were complicated. My mom tried to be supportive, but I could hear her crying at night when she thought I was asleep. My dad barely talked, and when he did, it was short, sharp things like, "You better start thinking about how you're gonna finish school," or "Babies aren't cheap." We didn't talk about Jake. We didn't talk about the future much either. Except for one night, when I couldn't sleep and wandered into the kitchen to find my mom staring at a pile of bills. I sat down across from her, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. "I don't want to ruin your life," I said. She looked up at me, startled. Then something in her face softened. She reached across the table and held my hand. "You're not ruining anything, baby," she whispered. "You're just starting a new kind of hard." And that was it. That was the first time I didn't feel like a mistake. But I still cried myself to sleep that night. Not because I regretted the baby, but because I didn't know how I was going to do this. I couldn't imagine a baby shower or a nursery. I couldn't picture myself in college. I didn't know if I'd still have a place on the volleyball team next season. My world had gotten smaller, heavier. But that flicker on the ultrasound, that heartbeat, it gave me something to hold on to. And as much as I wanted to run from everything, I knew I wouldn't. Because this baby didn't ask to be here. But they were here now. And they deserved better than me falling apart. By the time I was 14 weeks along, my jeans stopped buttoning. It was just a soft curve, not even noticeable to most people unless they were staring, but I noticed it. Every time I stood in front of the mirror. Every time I reached for something on the floor, and realized I wasn't bending quite the same way. I started wearing oversized hoodies all the time, even when the spring sun started warming things up. Just trying to keep everything hidden, though I don't know why. The school already knew. The teachers already whispered. Jake's name still floated through the halls like some ghost I couldn't shake. He'd moved on. That much was obvious. He started dating a girl from his physics class. I only knew because someone told someone who couldn't wait to tell me. I tried to act like it didn't bother me. Like I didn't still have his number memorized. Like I didn't still check his social media sometimes just to see if he posted something, anything that hinted he cared. Spoiler alert. He didn't. I don't know what hurt more, losing him, or realizing he was never really mine. At school, I became that girl. Not in a good way. I wasn't the overachiever anymore, or the team captain. I was the pregnant one. People either avoided me like I was contagious, or they leaned in too close and asked questions that didn't belong to them. Are you keeping it? Was it an accident? Do you even know who the dad is? The first time I heard that one, I almost threw my tray at the kid. I hated that I didn't have a quick comeback. I hated that I had to keep walking with my head up, pretending those words didn't carve something into me. The nurse's office became my second home. The nausea was relentless. Some days I'd be halfway through a test and just have to bolt. I started keeping saltines in my locker and a bottle of ginger ale in my backpack. My attendance dipped. My grades too. But what could I do? My body was already working double time, and I still had homework and judgment, and this constant fear that I was going to fail at everything school, motherhood life. One morning, I sat in the hallway outside AP English, head between my knees, trying not to throw up, and Mr. Chapman, the janitor, came by. He was this sweet old guy who always smelled like lemon cleaner and had a limp from back in the Navy. "You okay there, kiddo?" I nodded. "Kind of. Not really." He pulled out a peppermint from his shirt pocket and handed it to me. My wife swore by these when she was carrying our second. Worth a shot. I clutched that candy like it was a miracle. You start to learn who the quiet angels are in your life. People who don't have to help but do. Like Mr. Chapman. Like Maria. Like Ms. Carter, my guidance counselor, who stopped me after school one day and said, "Ellie, I know this isn't easy, but I've seen girls get through it. You're not the first and you're not alone." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But alone is exactly how it felt most days. The volleyball team had a banquet in April. I didn't want to go. I didn't have a dress that fit anymore. I didn't want to sit at a table while everyone talked about scholarships and next year's lineup. But coach texted me personally, "You're still part of this team. You helped build it. Come." So I went, wore a flowy maxi dress I found on clearance, and tried to keep my hand on my stomach the whole time. I walked into that gym and felt every pair of eyes. I was the cautionary tale in the corner, the before and after. One of the girls gave me a tight smile and whispered, "You're really brave." I wanted to laugh. Brave? I was just surviving. Still, when they called my name for the leadership award, I felt something twist in my chest. Maybe I hadn't been erased. Maybe part of me still existed outside of this growing belly and the thousand assumptions people were making about my future. Afterward, coach hugged me, and I swear she smelled just like the detergent my mom uses. Comforting, warm, familiar. "I'm proud of you, Ellie," she said. "Not just for this year. For showing up. For fighting when it would have been easier to quit." I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. At home, my mom had started collecting baby things from thrift stores. A stack of gently used onesies grew on the edge of the couch. She started watching parenting videos, jotting notes in a notebook she labeled Grandma School. She tried in her own way to make things feel less terrifying, but I could still hear the tension in her voice when she talked about money. She started picking up weekend shifts at the diner. My dad still kept his distance, though every once in a while I'd catch him staring at my belly with a strange mix of fear and wonder, like he couldn't believe this was actually happening. One night after dinner, I found him in the garage, pretending to organize tools he hadn't touched in years. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed over my bump. "You mad at me?" I asked. He didn't turn around right away, just wiped his hands on an old towel. "No," he finally said. "I'm scared for you." And for the first time he looked at me, not just as his daughter, but as someone about to become a mother. He walked over, laid a hand gently on my shoulder. "You're stronger than you think, Elle." I didn't reply. I just leaned into him and let myself believe it, even for a second. That night, I slept a little deeper. I still didn't know how I was going to manage everything. Finals were coming. My body was changing fast, and the world felt like it had already written me off. But somewhere in that mess, a little voice started whispering inside me, "You're not done yet." By May, I was waddling, not like a cartoon character or anything, but enough that I couldn't exactly play it cool anymore. My belly rounded out and introduced itself before I even said hi. Strangers opened doors for me. Girls in the hallway stared openly now, no more whispering. Some gave me the kind of sympathetic smiles you'd offer someone whose dog just died. Others looked away, like I reminded them of something uncomfortable they weren't ready to imagine for themselves. I was still in school, still pregnant, still showing up every day with my hair pulled back and my back aching and my books weighing me down on one shoulder, while my baby shifted around on the other. Finals were approaching, and my brain felt like someone had replaced it with mashed potatoes. Pregnancy brain is real, and mine was in full effect. I'd walk into a room and forget what I came for, start a sentence, and trail off mid-thought. I was exhausted before first period, and running on pure stubbornness by third. Then one day Jake showed up. It was raining. Of course it was like we were in some dramatic teen drama. I was walking home because my mom's car had died again, and she was working late. Umbrella flipped inside out, feet soaked. I was halfway down Maple Street when I saw him sitting on the front steps of my house. For a second I thought I imagined him, like a ghost conjured up by hormones and unresolved anger. But there he was. Same hoodie, same posture, same crooked grin. I froze on the sidewalk, water dripping from my hood. He stood up slowly. "Hey," he said, voice scratchy like he hadn't used it in a while. I didn't answer, just looked at him. This boy who used to be my whole world, and now looked like a chapter one was trying hard not to reread. "I heard you're having a girl," he said. My heart stopped. I hadn't told many people. How did he know? "Maria posted something," he added quickly. It was a baby hat. Pink. I clutched my bag tighter. "You stalking my friends now?" He winced. "No. I don't know. I've been thinking. About you. About everything." I didn't know whether to scream or sob, or just throw my wet shoes at him. "You ghosted me, Jake," I said, my voice trembling. "Blocked me. Let the whole school believe whatever they wanted. Do you know what I've been through?" He looked down at his shoes. "I know. I was a coward." "No," I snapped. "Cowards at least acknowledge their mess. You disappeared." Silence stretched between us, filled with the sound of rain hitting the porch. He finally looked up, eyes wet, not from the rain. I didn't know how to handle it. I freaked out. I thought, if I ignored it, it would all just go away. You, the baby, the guilt. I let out a bitter laugh. "Well, surprise. We're still here." He nodded. "I can see that. And you're doing it. Alone." My chest ached. Not just from the anger, but from all the memories flooding back. The way he used to run his thumb across my knuckles when we held hands. The way he made me laugh so hard I cried on our first real date. I used to think we were forever. Now he was just a boy in the rain with too many regrets, and too little too late. "What do you want, Jake?" I asked finally. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I guess I just wanted to see you. To say I'm sorry. To say, if you ever need anything." I held up my hand. "No," I said softly. "You don't get to say that now. You don't get to parachute in and be the good guy when the storm's almost over. This baby, she doesn't know you. And unless you're ready to be in her life, all the way, not just when it's convenient, then you don't get to be in it at all." He blinked, nodded, looked like he wanted to argue, but didn't. "I'm gonna be better," he said. "Even if it's not for her. For me." I stepped past him, up the porch, key in the door. "That's a good idea," I said without looking back. "Start with yourself. We'll be fine." I meant it. I really did. Inside the house, I peeled off my wet clothes and sank onto the couch, the baby kicking gently like she was reminding me she was there. I laid my hand over my belly and closed my eyes. Jake was my past. She was my future. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel scared of what was coming next. June came fast. My belly was now fully in charge, leading the way wherever I went. I couldn't see my feet anymore. Couldn't tie my own shoes without some impressive yoga-level squatting. And sleep was a luxury I said goodbye to somewhere around week 28. The baby had a fondness for 2 a.m. gymnastics, and apparently, my bladder was her favorite trampoline. Despite the exhaustion and the constant ache in my lower back, I was getting things ready. I didn't have a lot, but I had enough. The nursery was really just the corner of my room, with a borrowed bassinet, a second-hand dresser we painted white, And a string of paper butterflies Maria had made me during one of our "You're not falling apart, you're just pregnant" crafting nights. We didn't have a name yet. I had a list folded in my journal: Lila, June, Camille, Hazel. Some nights I'd lie awake and whisper them aloud like a prayer, waiting for one to feel like her. But none of them quite fit yet. She still felt like a secret I was carrying close to my heart, not ready to be named, just growing. One hot Thursday afternoon, while I was half asleep on the couch with a box fan blowing directly on my face, my mom walked in holding an envelope. "This came for you," she said, already fanning herself with a grocery receipt. I blinked and sat up slowly. The envelope was plain, no return address, but the handwriting looked familiar. I opened it carefully and pulled out a sheet of notebook paper. My hand started to shake when I saw the signature at the bottom. It was from Jake's mom. "Ellie, I know I'm probably the last person you expect or want to hear from, but I felt like I needed to write to you, not as Jake's mother but as a woman, and as someone who raised a boy who didn't do the right thing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what my son did or didn't do. I'm sorry that you've had to face this alone, and that we weren't there for you. You may not want anything from us, and I understand that. But if you ever do, if there's ever anything you need, even if it's just a ride or a babysitter or a crib, I'm here. My number's at the bottom. No pressure. Just an open door." It was signed, Kathy. I read it 3 times. My mom sat down beside me, quiet, letting me process. "She was always kind," I said finally. "Brought cookies to every school bake sale. Always remembered my name. She didn't get pregnant," my mom said. "You did. You don't owe them anything." I know. But something about the letter, how it didn't excuse Jake, how it didn't ask for anything, stirred something in me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But a softening. A loosening of that knot I'd been carrying for months. That evening my dad showed up with a crib. He didn't say where he got it, just came in grumbling. "This thing's got more screws than a spaceship," and spent the next 2 hours assembling it while muttering under his breath. I sat on the bed watching him struggle with the instructions. At one point he held up a screw and said, "You sure this baby's not gonna come out with a toolkit?" I laughed so hard I cried. After he finally finished, he stood back and looked at the crib, then at me. "You've got this, Elle," he said. "You're gonna be a great mom." That was the first time he said the word mom out loud, and it broke something open in me. That night, I stood by the crib in the dim light of my desk lamp, my hand on my belly, and I whispered one of the names again. The same one I'd whispered before, but this time it felt different. "Hazel," I said softly, and she kicked, like she agreed. Hazel came early. Not emergency lights and frantic screaming early, but oh my God, that say contraction early. I was 36 weeks, still telling myself I had plenty of time, still making lists of things I needed: baby wipes, nursing bras, strength. Lots of that last one. It was a Tuesday morning. I was eating waffles with peanut butter, because Hazel had decided syrup was no longer acceptable, when this low twisting pain bloomed in my back and wrapped around my hips. I paused, forked midair, and thought, no way. It's just Braxton Hicks, right? But 5 minutes later another one came. Stronger. I did what any mature young woman would do in a moment of potential crisis. I Googled it. Signs of early labor. Can labor feel like bad period cramps? Am I dying or just becoming a mom? By the time the 5th one hit, I wasn't laughing anymore. I called my mom at the diner. "Don't freak out," I said first, which of course made her immediately freak out. "I think it's time." She was home in 15 minutes, apron still on, flour on her jeans. She took one look at me hunched over the armrest and said, "Hospital. Now." The drive was a blur of potholes, prayer, and my dad missing every turn while yelling at Siri. We got to the hospital just before noon. They wheeled me into triage, asked me 1,000 questions I barely registered, and then told me, "You're 4 centimeters. You're staying." 4 centimeters. I suddenly remembered a documentary we watched in health class where the woman said, "It's like pushing a watermelon through a keyhole." I was about to push a watermelon through a keyhole, and there was no going back. The contractions came hard and fast. No gentle build-up, no Hollywood breathing exercises, just waves crashing through me one after another. My mom held my hand. My dad stood awkwardly by the window until a nurse finally asked, "Sir, do you want to go get some ice chips or anything?" Bless that nurse. The hours blurred. I don't remember much except my mom whispering, "You're okay, baby, you're okay," over and over like a lullaby for both of us. Somewhere around 8 centimeters I broke. "I can't do this," I sobbed. "I'm not strong enough. I can't." She leaned in close, cupped my face in her hands. "You already are," she said. "Look what you've done. Look how far you've come." And I saw it then, her eyes full of love and fire, not pity. I wasn't the mistake. I wasn't the shame. I was her daughter. I was a mother now. At 9:47 p.m., Hazel Rose came into the world screaming like a thunderclap. 6 pounds, 10 ounces of brand new miracle. They laid her on my chest and I couldn't breathe. She was all pink and squirmy and furious, and I was soaked in sweat and tears and love so huge it didn't even fit in my chest. I kissed the top of her head and whispered, "Hi, baby. I'm your mom." That sentence knocked the air out of me. I'm your mom. No visitors came that night.
No flowers. No balloons.
But I didn't feel alone. My mom held her granddaughter with tears slipping silently down her cheeks. My dad stood in the corner pretending to look at his phone, but I caught him wiping his eyes. And then the nurse brought in a surprise. "A delivery for Ellie Morris?" she asked, holding a box. Inside was a small bouquet of daisies, a soft pink blanket, and a card. "Welcome to the world, Hazel. You have your mother's heart already. I hope one day you'll know just how strong she is. Kathy." I stared at the handwriting and pressed the card to my chest. She saw me. Really saw me. That night, when the room was dark and everyone was asleep but me and Hazel, I watched her tiny chest rise and fall. I counted her fingers, memorized her little nose, traced the curve of her perfect ear. I'd lost a lot. Jake. Friends. My plan. But what I gained in that moment was something no one could take away. Purpose. A beginning. Her. Nothing prepares you for the kind of tired that comes after having a baby. It's not just the kind of tired that a nap can fix. It's bone-deep, soul-sagging, eyes-burning. Did I already feed her or dream it? Tired. And it settles into you like an uninvited guest with no plans to leave. The first week home was a blur of diapers, spit up, and my mom checking on us every 20 minutes like we were a science experiment she was both supervising and praying over. Hazel cried a lot. Mostly at night. Sometimes just because she felt like it, I swear. The first time I gave her a bath, she screamed like I was trying to murder her. I cried too. And when I finally got her dried off and dressed in that little yellow onesie with the ducks, she looked at me with those squinty newborn eyes like she forgave me. That's the thing no one tells you about babies, they forgive fast. They don't hold it against you when you're fumbling through motherhood like a blindfolded amateur. Every morning, I'd wake up feeling like I failed. And every time Hazel wrapped her fingers around mine, I'd believe for a moment that maybe I didn't. People stared at us in the grocery store. And my age. And my lack of ring. Some with sympathy. Others with judgment. Once, a woman with a tight smile said, "You babysitting?" I looked at Hazel, then back at the woman. Nope. Full-time position. No vacation days. She didn't laugh. I started to learn how to pack a diaper bag like a survival kit. Learned which diapers didn't leak, how to rock Hazel in just the right rhythm to make her sleepy, how to cry quietly in the shower so no one would hear. I missed school. I missed Maria. I missed being Ellie, the girl who used to dream about Chicago and dance barefoot in the rain after practice. But every time I looked at Hazel, some new piece of me clicked into place. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after we came home, there was a knock at the door. I had Hazel in the sling on my chest and peanut butter on my shirt. I opened it with my foot. It was Jake. My first thought, he looks older. Not in a bad way. Just worn. Less boy. More man. Kind of. He held a small bag in one hand and shoved the other into his hoodie pocket. "Hey." I didn't say anything. Just waited. "I know I shouldn't have come without calling," he said, eyes on the floor. My mom told me. About Hazel. And the letter she sent. And I've been thinking. A lot." Hazel let out a soft grunt in her sleep. Jake's eyes lifted to her, and something in his face shifted. I saw it. That click. The recognition. The "oh my god, that's my child" moment. And it hit me right in the chest. "She looks like you," he whispered. She grunts like you when she sleeps, I said, and instantly regretted it. Too familiar. Too soft. He smiled just for a second, then pulled a little package from the bag and held it out. I got her a book, he said. It's the one my mom used to read to me. Guess How Much I Love You. Dumb title, but I don't know. Thought maybe she'd like it. I took it, fingers brushing his. Thanks. He stood there for a moment like he didn't know what to do next. I'm not here to make some big speech, he said finally. I want to know her. That's okay. I know I have a lot to prove. I just didn't want to wait anymore to try. I looked down at Hazel, still sleeping, her little chest rising and falling like the world depended on it. Then I looked back at him. You left me when I needed you most, I said. You don't get to erase that with a picture book. I know. But, I added, if you're really serious, like really, then you can start by showing up. Not when it's convenient. Not just on Sundays. If you want to be in her life, prove it. With time. With diapers. With 3 a.m. wake-ups. He nodded. Okay. I stepped aside.
Come in.
You can hold her if you wash your hands. He did. Carefully. Quietly. And when I passed her to him, I saw something in him soften. He stared at her like she was the most delicate thing in the world. She's so small, he whispered. Yeah, I said. And she's watching us even now. We sat on the couch for 10 quiet minutes.
No arguing.
No past. Just Hazel in the middle, the one thing we'd made right in all our mess. I wasn't naive. I didn't expect him to turn into Father of the Year overnight. But for the first time he was here. That was something. That night I opened the book he brought and read it aloud to Hazel, her tiny fingers curled around my thumb. And as she drifted to sleep I thought, maybe this story wasn't just about what I lost. Maybe it was still being written. Summer faded into fall like someone slowly dimming the lights. The heat gave way to cooler evenings and I found myself bundling Hazel in the soft pink blanket Kathy gave us. She loved it, by the way, always fell asleep faster wrapped in that thing like it had its own kind of magic. Hazel was about 2 months old when I got my first paycheck. It wasn't glamorous. I worked 4-hour shifts at a little corner bakery 3 days a week while my mom watched the baby. The manager, Doris, was this tough old woman who wore her gray hair in a bun so tight it looked like it hurt, but she had a soft spot for single moms. First day I showed up, she pointed to the apron rack and said, "You got a kid? Then you already know how to work. Let's go." Minimum wage never felt so heavy. But holding that check in my hands, it was proof I was doing something. Even if it barely covered diapers and gas money, it was mine. Earned with flour on my arms and aching feet. Every morning before I left, I'd kiss Hazel's forehead and whisper, "I'm doing this for you." And every time I came home and she lit up when she saw me, it felt worth it. Worth the long hours, the tight budget, the looks people gave me when I said I couldn't hang out or go to movies anymore. My life was nap schedules and teething rings now, and I didn't hate it. I just missed me sometimes. Maria still visited. She was starting community college and juggling a new job too. But she always found time to stop by with coffee or muffins or just to hold Hazel so I could take a shower without rushing. One evening while Hazel napped in her bassinet, Maria and I sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the streetlights flicker on. "You ever think about what you'd be doing if this hadn't happened?" she asked gently, no judgment in her voice. "All the time," I said. "College. Volleyball. Maybe a dorm room with fairy lights and a roommate who borrows my shampoo." Maria smiled. "Yeah, but then you wouldn't have Hazel." "I know." I looked through the window at my baby sleeping, cheeks round and peaceful. I just wish I didn't have to give up so much to gain her. It was the first time I admitted that out loud. And Maria didn't flinch. Didn't correct me or offer a Hallmark line about blessings. She just nodded. "It's okay to grieve the version of your life you didn't get," she said. "Doesn't mean you love her any less." That stayed with me for days. Jake started showing up more. Not in any grand, dramatic way, but quietly, consistently. He came on Mondays and Thursdays. Sometimes brought diapers. Sometimes just sat on the floor with Hazel and let her grab his nose while he made ridiculous faces. He was awkward at first, holding her like she was made of glass, but after a while he got more comfortable. He even changed a diaper without gagging. That was a moment. One day I watched him rock her to sleep, humming some off-key lullaby, and I felt this strange tug in my chest. Not love. Not anymore. But something close to forgiveness. Like the version of him I used to believe in was slowly maybe becoming real. He didn't try to win me back. Never made it weird. He just kept showing up. And in a world that had taken so many people out of my corner, his quiet return mattered. Then came the night I lost it. Hazel was colicky. She screamed for 3 hours straight, and I had tried everything: feeding, bouncing, the vacuum cleaner trick, swaddling, unswaddling, dancing to Beyoncé. Nothing worked. She just screamed and screamed and screamed. I put her down in her crib and stepped into the hallway, closed the door, sat on the floor and sobbed. It wasn't the kind of crying you do when you're sad. It was the kind you do when your bones feel hollow and your hope feels like a joke. I whispered to no one, "I can't do this. I'm not enough. I'm just a kid playing mom." My mom found me like that. She didn't say anything at first. Just sat next to me, leaned her head against the wall. "She used to cry like that too," she said after a while. When you were 4 weeks old. Nothing helped except the dryer." I looked at her, tear-streaked and puffy-eyed. "I don't know what I'm doing." She smiled. "None of us do. That's the secret." We brought Hazel to the laundry room, set her in her bouncy seat on top of the dryer, turned it on low. Within minutes she was calm. Not asleep, but calm. Like some ancient magic only mothers knew. That night I journaled for the first time in weeks. I wrote about the diaper rash that made Hazel fussy, the $10 dress I found at the thrift store that actually fit me again, the way she smiled that day like she knew a joke I hadn't caught yet. And I wrote this: "I'm not the girl I was, and maybe I never will be again, but I'm someone else now. Someone who's learning how to be strong. Someone Hazel can count on." Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything. Fall turned into early winter. The trees thinned, their branches bare and reaching, like they were waiting for something. I knew the feeling. Hazel was 5 months old and smiling all the time. Real gummy smiles that reached her eyes. She was learning how to roll over, trying to scoot, fascinated by her own toes like they were the 8th wonder of the world. Every day she changed, grew, and every day I felt that familiar ache of pride, of fear, of love so big it didn't fit inside my chest anymore. I was working more hours at the bakery. Doors bumped me up to closing shifts on weekends, said I was a dependable kid with a mean sourdough braid. I wore that like a badge of honor. Life started feeling like a rhythm, hard but stable. I knew when the formula would run out. I knew how many diapers we had left. I knew which lullabies worked and which ones made Hazel laugh instead of sleep. I even had a second-hand jogging stroller, and we'd go for walks in the mornings, just me and her and the sidewalk under our feet. I still thought about college, about the version of life I used to dream of. Sometimes I'd see posts from old classmates in dorm rooms or at parties and it stung, but less than it used to. Then came the letter. It was thick, cream-colored, with my name handwritten on the front. No return address, but when I opened it, the header gave it away. Chicago Community Women's Initiative, Young Mothers Scholarship Program. I had applied months ago, on a whim, on a night when Hazel fell asleep early and I felt a spark of something wild in my chest. I wrote my essay with tears in my eyes and cookie crumbs on my keyboard. And now I was reading the words I never expected. "We are thrilled to inform you." I stared at the paper, my hands shaking, the words blurring. I had a way out, or maybe a way forward. A partial scholarship, a small stipend, childcare assistance, a spot in a program for single moms returning to school. In Chicago, it felt like someone had opened a window in a room I didn't know was locked. But it was terrifying too. Leaving meant change, risk. Leaving meant starting over in a city where I had no backup plan, no soft place to land. It meant Hazel and I on our own for real. I told my mom that night, sat her down at the kitchen table with the letter between us. "I got in," I said. She read it, quiet. Her eyes didn't move much, but I knew she was reading every word. When she looked up, there were tears. "You're really going to go?" she asked. I nodded. "I think I have to." She looked at Hazel in her high chair, gumming a teething ring, giggling like she owned the world. "Chicago's a long way." "I know." She reached over and held my hand. "Then we'll figure it out." The next few weeks were chaos. Arrangements, packing, Paperwork. I said goodbye to Doris, who hugged me tighter than I expected. Make us proud, kid, she said, wiping her eyes with her apron. Jake didn't fight it. He asked questions about visiting, about holidays, about FaceTime. He'd grown up some. Enough to understand that sometimes love means letting go of what's comfortable. And then it was just me and Hazel. On a bus with 2 suitcases, a baby carrier, and a heart full of hope and fear braided together like that sourdough Doris loved so much. Chicago was cold. Biting wind, early snow, gray skies that stretched on forever. But our little apartment, tiny and creaky, had big windows and just enough space for a crib and a dream. Classes started slow. Late night studying, balancing nap schedules with lecture notes. Some days I thought I was drowning. Other days I felt like I could fly. Hazel made friends in daycare. I made friends in class. Other moms. Other girls like me. We swapped snacks and stories, held each other's babies when someone had a midterm. We laughed about stretch marks and sleep schedules and how none of us had any idea what we were doing. And then one night, walking home from class with Hazel bundled on my hip, snow starting to fall like glitter from the sky, I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something. A life. A future. A version of motherhood that didn't just exist in sacrifice, but in strength. A story that didn't end with the girl who got pregnant, but with the woman who kept going anyway. Hazel looked up at me with those wide eyes, mine through and through, and I kissed her forehead. Can you believe we made it this far? She cooed and shoved her mitten in her mouth. I laughed.